Hi, this is Porter Thorndike with a demonstration of WebFOCUS apps. WebFOCUS apps are highly parameter-driven applications that mirror the experience that many of you benefit from when you're using popular consumer applications. Think about Expedia when you're booking an airline ticket. Think about if you were shopping for a television on Best Buy. Oftentimes, users, non-technical consumers will be taken to a landing page like this. Let's say we're researching mutual funds. Asks you a couple questions. You can see we've got a couple parameters right here. And so we might answer this by saying, I'm sensitive to expenses and I'm looking for no fee funds, right? The idea is that you don't overwhelm the user with a million parameters and they refine their selections a little bit. Now here's the key. This is called a usability technique called progressive disclosure. Once we do that, we click results and we are progressed or taken to another page. And it's done a couple things. It's retained our original selections, right? We could change that. We could go back if we wanted to. And at this point, that's when it exposes secondary selections. So you might want to refine this to say I'm looking for a low volatility fund or one with a high manager tenure. But that once you refine those selections for the mutual fund or the flight or the television you're looking for, and it's all been very easy, right? Didn't have to be trained to use this. We might expose maybe even tertiary selections, or I like to call them exotic selections, So WebFOCUS, that's what WebFOCUS is really good at, exposing anything as a variable or a parameter. So sometimes this could be the way that you're sorting or grouping the report. It could be tailoring the measurement criteria, like you might not want those, but you want to see the volatility and the expense ratio, totally customizable at runtime. Or we could export this into different formats. HTML is this super cool format that works portably. It gives you nice out-of-the-box interaction and customization capabilities. And of course, PDF, Excel, and PowerPoint. And then of course, WebFOCUS also really good at offering drill down. In this case, this is a pretty high-end example of a fact sheet that one of our customers created. Pixel perfect, borders, images, text, reports, charts, different types of pages as well. Porter, this must be impossible to create. That is so cool, and I get it. I see how valuable that could be for creating applications. This must be impossible for WebFOCUS to create. It is not. But we have done some things recently to make this much faster and much easier. So when we think about the basis for that application, well, it's a report. And if we were to think about, hey, what is the code that produces that? It looks something like this. And you can see we've got default values in here. We've got variable measure and dimension, a lot of filters, variable output format, amongst other capabilities. So this is created automatically by the WebFOCUS graphical tools, but in the past, right, the WebFOCUS language's ability to expose anything as a parameter, we maybe didn't have everything in the graphical interface, like if you wanted to expose the format or the measure or the dimension as a variable, you might have to drop into the code. That wasn't necessarily a bad thing, right? The language and the product had the ability to support that. But we are making this completely no code, graphical, through some new features that we added. So one of these, we're looking at the WebFOCUS Designer, is the ability to graphically create variable measures or dimensions, anything, any attribute you might see in a report or a chart. Well, for a report, let's click the Add Parameter field list. And you'll notice it can be for anything, summary, row, column, group. In this case, if I'm going to do a variable measure, it's going to be a summary. So let's call this measure, and it's bucket type summaries. Let's do multi-select. And then we just drag and drop any of the values that we want to show up. Okay, so I'll just do 3, and you can change the default even if you want. You could have multiple. By default, I'll use the first. We could do the same for variable dimension or a crosstab. In this case, why don't I just kind of, why don't I drag asset class in there? So that's it, right? We save that. And we obviously could do much, much more with this, right? You'll notice we can also do the variable output format right there. Well, once we want to start laying out the page and we go into the assemble mode, once I drag this onto the canvas, you'll notice it's identified some variables right here. Okay, so it's got variable measure and dimension. It's actually got 2 filters also. and we can drive things like chaining behavior. So if the user selects category, it filters to fun name. Let's just add them all to the page. Another new control that we added that we find is super useful around variable measurement or dimensions, more so dimensions, is the double list box control. So I can convert this to double list box, and what this allows me to do is not just specify which dimensions are there, but any number of ones, but I can then also control the ordering. Like a lot of times you might want to group these in different orders. So that control is great for that. And actually for some time, we've had the ability to create these types of forms, with like text objects, report objects, different types of controls on the page, and we can also pass the value of the selection from one page to the next, that progressive disclosure capability. So as I click on the returns variable and I look at, let's actually click into the control here, you'll notice one thing that we're doing is assigning a global name. If you assign that same global name on the next page, which I have right here, it's going to pass that selection. I have customers that are doing like 7 levels of progression, producing millions of variations of reports. So WebFOCUS Designer is really set up to create these applications in a no-code graphical design experience, right? We've got cool things like collapsible sections. We've got right here, obviously all the parameters have a lot of settings around search and selection controls. And much more. And you can just lay out the page however, take the design from your user experience and design group if you want. That's what a lot of our customers do. This has been Porter Thorndike describing WebFOCUS apps, also known as info apps.